Hey everyone, welcome to another toy rant. So, the latest news is Hasbro is laying off 1,100 employees. Merry Christmas! Uh, I, my disgust is beyond comprehension because, you know, people just excuse it or like, okay, well, they're in it to make money. The easiest way to increase profit is to cut labor. Does that make it right? No, it does not. Just because it's a sound business decision doesn't mean it's a good decision. Now, they're blaming poor toy sales or sluggish toys. I say poor toy offerings is the problem. We've all seen it. They're cutting the corners, cutting back on accessories, they're cutting back on quality. We're getting more gummy joints. We're getting bent up weapons for classified. We're getting lackluster everything in every line. It's across the board. What did you expect to happen? You put out a inferior product while increasing prices, you will lose sales. I am surprised that needs to be explained. Apparently, Chris Cox doesn't understand that. And yes, I fully blame Chris Cox. I know, cutting the corners to increase profits was his call. Oversaturating the market was at least in some way his call. People be like, well, they don't know anything about the action. I mean, somebody had to call out and say, let's cut a corner. What corners can we cut? Or something along those lines. And then approve it. If that doesn't fall on the person in charge, who does it fall on? It's ridiculous. You got other people saying, oh, it's the factory. It's their fault. Um, well, actually, it's the designer's fault because they get, as we have been pulling the veil back again, we know that toy makers get samples that they can comment on. The samples are almost exactly what's going to come through the line. If they're not making comments, they don't see a problem. Indeed. Okay, so what is all this gearing towards? Well, I've been sitting around thinking, and by the time I air this video, I probably will have spoiled the next part of it. Because I'm going to be on, I plan to be on. My internet is acting very weird lately, so if I'm not on, that's why. But I plan to be on Largo's predictions for 2024 show, and I fully plan to say there this tidbit. Again, we're going back to Ahsoka and Ray Stevenson saying when you get enough, you start seeing the cycles, etc. Well, I'm seeing the cycles. So what I'm specifically reminded of, first, the boom of the 118 scale in 2000, around 2009, all the way up to about 2014, when Hasbro was firing on all cylinders, was doing great, things were going strong. There was a 118th lines galore out there. We grabbed them up. I mean, it was a great time, a great time. The other time I'm reminded of is back in the day with, that's right, the comic book boom. Now, the simplistic people still say the comic book boom died because of speculation. That was one piece of a giant puzzle. Because the other thing that happened is the quality went down. Guardians of the Galaxy, the very first Guardians of the Galaxy, is my prime example of this. If you look at the first issue and you look at the last issue, you see such a major difference. They totally redesigned their costumes. They look stupid. It was total 90s. Yeah, it was ripping off Liefeld, McFarlane, all those guys. I mean, it was trying to do that jazzy style, and it didn't work for Guardians of the Galaxy. Ghost Rider, the Dan Keats run. Perfect book for the first 25, 30 issues. Have you ever read the last 10? Total crap. It's awful. The quality of that book suffered. There was this component that nobody I know of ever talks about, is that the product got bad. Even the paper was printed on looked like shit. going back to the 2000s, 2010s. I really think that one was that Hasbro thought it could do no wrong, and it did Rise of Cobra. And I do think Rise of Cobra did bring G.I. Joe and a lot of other properties down. The Transformer movies worked, the Joe movie did not. And, let's look at some things. These guys all look, the figures all kind of look the same. Yeah, I know you want that in the military line, but at the same time, there has to be a balance. But if you dress all your guys in black and a little bit of gray camo, it gets kind of boring after a while. That's why some of the figures from that movie line that had a touch of color, like Helix, stick out so much. She had a little yellow, and it made all the difference for that figure. And today, people still remember that character. Ta-da! One of the few new characters from the Rise of Cobra line that actually gets any remembrance. Now, you look overhead and you see Action Force. Yeah, there's a uniformity to those figures, but they all look different. So that helps a lot. But I think Rise of Cobra was starting the downhill decline. Pursuit of Cobra brought it back up, but the problem with that one was there was some major distribution problems. Major. Especially the last waves, which were the best waves. That's where we got low light and sci-fi and airtight and really bad figures. And we all know 50th anniversary and all that and how that kind of teetered out. And I don't really go over all the details, but Retaliation, that toy line really kind of destroyed G.I. Joe. Because after that came out, it was like nothing for a long time until that 50th anniversary. And then, so where are my thoughts going here? And I know I kind of rambled a little bit because I'm trying to give context. Is the thing about in the 90s with the comic book boom, we saw these independent companies pop up. And we thought those indie companies were going to last. Image, Valiant, Ultraverse. I mean, all of them seemed poised to live forever. And then stupid mistakes happened. Valiant took what worked and threw it away and did something else. Now, part of that was the firing of Jim Shooter. Part of that was just stupid ideas. I mean, Jim Shooter was not necessary to keep Valiant going, but stupid ideas could bring it down very easily. And it did. Ultraverse. They got, they just bombarded the market with comic books and people just lost interest. And then they just folded under because they just got too bloated. Kind of like what Hasbro's doing now. Dark Horse survived because they always had like a kind of side audience that was a little bit on the odd side, but could keep them afloat. Image, let's face it, the only reason Image is still around is because of Robert Kirkman and The Walking Dead. If it hadn't been for him, none of that would still be, that company would not exist. And, let's look over and see where all the Image guys are, mostly. They're all tied to DC anyway. So, as Michael French famously said, nostalgia is a glider. And pretty soon, you're going to see you're going to see the ground rushing up to you. And the fact that your glider is made out of foam is going to make the impact disastrous. I'm slightly paraphrasing there because I didn't want to go and look up the quote to get it directly, but you know the idea. You've heard the quote. This to me, I think, they skipped off the ground a little bit. They got a little bit of traction left, but I don't think it's going to last long. Let's face some realities here. First, major thing is with Marvel and Star Wars, their biggest properties outside of anything they own, they are tied to the media. And let's just be honest, it's been said a million times, the media is lackluster. The Marvels isn't that good. I like Ahsoka, but let's face it, the demand for those characters is kind of low. I mean, there is. I won't say there's not demand, but it's not as high as Jedi Luke. Those are just two examples, but you get where I'm going with this. It's kind of sputtering. Marvel's having trouble, Star Wars is having trouble, and thus the licensee is having trouble. Now, what happens next? Now, what happens could be what happened in the 90s, is the whole thing comes crashing down. and toys just kind of disappear for a while. The adult collector is out of the game because there's nothing there for them. We're seeing a rise of the independents, just like with the comics. I'm looking at the independents, and I am seeing a different vibe, though. These guys seem a little bit smarter, a little bit more in control. It looks like they have plans, and they're moving with plans rather than just being like, okay, do this, and rush it out there. They're taking their time. They're working at the pace they need to work, and they're releasing stuff on a schedule that is tolerable. You can, let stuff sit. You can wait to buy it. You don't have to buy it immediately. You can wait a week. Well, the exception being Warpath Eclipse, but that was a little bit unpredictable, and that one has been rectified. But I do see a big rise in independent companies this year. How far that goes is a question. I mean, we might be talking 5 years from now, none of these companies make it. We might be talking 5 years from now, these are the only company. This is a lot different than the 90s comic boom, even though it shares some similarities. There's somebody buying. I don't know of very many people who are buying toys thinking it's an investment. I mean, I'm sure there's a couple out there, but very few. Scalpers mostly. They're trying to get a quick buck. So, at the very minimum, that side of the equation is no longer a factor. Hasbro, on the other hand, I don't. I have a hard time seeing them lasting much longer because the only way I see it is if classified continues to hold on the way it has. That might save their bacon for the fourth time. G.I. Joe saved them for the fourth time. That would be interesting. But I don't think it will because again, that nostalgia glider is about to crash, and that line has leaned heavily into the nostalgia. Now, I've been very vocal on the fact that I'm getting out of that line, but I'm still grabbing a few things on the way out the door. And in that, that's me. I mean, I have a certain attachment to certain characters. Yeah, I'm going to own those characters in classified form. I'm not going to go with the vehicles. That's not my wheelhouse. Again, I own the originals. There's no way. Now, what might work for them is they're doing 1/18th and 1/12th scale. That might get the crowds in. I mean, you're catering to two different demographics, two different idealists. Okay, you might be able to hold on with that. But there's got to be some drastic changes at Hasbro. For one major one, the Marvel Legends has to slow down. They cannot throw out that kind of product and not expect it to pile up in the warehouses. My theory is that Marvel Legends put out so much product last year. Product would get to the warehouses, they send it out to the stores, but of course they always have a backstop, to refill. And the store would sell out. By the time it sold out, the new product came in. So that's the first thing to go out. And after a while, you have this backlog of product that you want to restock with, and you can't. And somebody finally said, enough's enough. Get rid of this shit. We need the space. And that's why it's all showed up at Ollie's and Ross. And it was just get rid of it anywhere you can. That's my theory. I don't know that to be fact, but that seems logical to me. I got into an argument with a guy a few days ago. He tried to say Hasbro's doing fine because their sales are better now than they were in 2002. Tell me you don't understand business without actually telling me. Tell me you don't understand economics without actually telling me. Literally what the guy said. He said, that's up, baby. So's inflation. I mean, this is the level we're dealing with the Hasbros. So what happens next? I mean, it's speculation. This is my speculation. But laying off 1,100 people right during the holidays, that is a bad PR move. And somebody at Hasbro is not too bright. Because you know what? If you're going to do a layoff, the last time you do it is during the holidays. I've seen companies go under because of a move like that. So this is going to be interesting to see where this goes. All right, I've rambled enough, thrown my ideas out there. I'm sure some Hasbro shills are going to say, oh, no, you're not. Hasbro's eternal. Yes, we said the same about Kenner, dude. All right, don't forget to like and subscribe.